CaitlinClark is arguably more significant to the WNBA than Tiger Woods ever was to men's golf. Not because Tiger wasn't a game changer, but because Clark's impact is hitting a league that never had anything like her before. And yet, instead of embracing this phenomenon, many within the league responded with cold shoulders, skepticism, or outright hostility. Christine Brennan, a respected veteran in sports journalism, has taken a scalpel to the WNBA's leadership, culture, and media environment in a recent book that is causing shockwaves. The revelations inside paint a portrait not just of missed opportunity, but of systemic failure. And not the kind that's accidental, but the kind rooted in outdated mindsets, jealousy, and a lack of foresight. Hollywood Buzzing reported that the WNBA had no idea how to handle CaitlinClark, despite having years to prepare. Her rise through the Big Ten was no secret. Iowa's games were generating monster ratings. Merchandise sales were exploding. Lines to watch her play were stretching outside freezing arenas hours before games even started. Every data point screamed future star, and yet the WNBA's leadership acted as if it were business as usual. What Brennan's reporting exposed is deeper than simple incompetence. It's a culture that resents success when it doesn't arrive in the package they expect. The league has long seen itself as a purist endeavor, valuing grind and grit over flash and attention. But Clark disrupted that. She arrived not only with game-changing talent, but with mass appeal, crossover fandom, and the ability to turn casual viewers into diehard fans. Instead of welcoming that, some WNBA figures acted like she was a threat. It's like watching a business reject customers because too many are showing up. Brennan highlights the contrast between how golf embraced Tiger Woods and how the WNBA mishandled Clark. In Tiger's case, fellow golfers knew that more eyeballs meant more prize money and better exposure for all. In contrast, Clark's ascent was met with cheap shots, passive-aggressive press comments, and a marketing effort that can only be described as laughably inadequate. Even some of the league's own media liaisons reportedly discouraged questions about why Clark was polarizing. Brennan doesn't hold back. Her research and interviews uncover a league that, rather than preparing for a new era, clung to an outdated identity. She points out that Clark is not just another promising rookie. She's a white woman in a league that is over 70% black, and while that shouldn't matter, Brennan notes it clearly does to some. Instead of framing her arrival as an expansion of attention to all players, many seem to frame it as a threat to the status quo. Brennan tackles this head-on, pointing out that Clark's success doesn't diminish others. It lifts the whole league. But when players, coaches, and even fans respond with resentment, it creates a toxic environment where growth is stunted before it starts. And yet, the public was already on board. Mainstream America was tuning in like never before. Clark was doing for women's basketball what Michael Jordan did for the NBA, making it cool, making it must-watch, making it relevant to people who never watched before. And many in the league simply couldn't wrap their heads around it. Brennan recounts moments that should have been obvious turning points. Like the moment Clark declared for the draft, Brennan reached out to a high-ranking WNBA official who said the most comparable moment was Maya Moore's entry into the league. That's not even in the same solar system. Moore was elite, but Clark is a cultural lightning rod. The WNBA had the chance to rebrand itself overnight and fumbled it. Hollywood Buzzing noted that it wasn't just officials, media, players, even some sponsors treated Clark's rise like an inconvenience rather than an opportunity. Brennan details how Nike, with all its resources, missed the mark entirely. The rollout of Clark's shoe deal was so underwhelming it looked like a high school project. Merchandise was poorly stocked. Promotional campaigns were lackluster. It's baffling how an industry that thrives on stars could be so unready for one. On the court, things were no better. Brennan lays out how Clark became the league's punching bag, literally. Flagrant fouls, trash talk, aggressive defensive tactics weren't just part of the game. They were targeted attempts to humble her. Instead of celebrating that a rookie was drawing millions of new fans, it seemed like some players were determined to remind her she didn't belong. And the league did little to stop it. Brennan calls out the leadership's silence. Where was the commissioner when this was happening? Where were the marketing campaigns celebrating this once-in-a-generation draw? Apparently too busy defending the league's culture to see that the culture itself was suffocating its biggest asset. Brennan's reporting also addresses how traditional media failed in parallel with league leadership. Many established reporters seemed more interested in questioning Clark's rise than covering it. Think pieces questioned whether she deserved the attention, as if her record-breaking viewership, scoring milestones, and mass fan engagement weren't enough. The book makes clear that many in media were late to the party and annoyed they weren't the ones who threw it. Meanwhile, new media, YouTubers, TikTok creators, and podcasters had already picked up on the Clark wave years ago. They were generating millions of views, monetizing content, and growing interest in women's basketball, while traditional outlets debated whether it was worth covering. This disconnect underscores a bigger issue. The WNBA is still operating with a 1990s playbook in a TikTok world. Hollywood buzzing didn't miss the irony that some of the same players and coaches who criticized Clark are now trying to hitch their wagon to her popularity. People who called her overrated or downplayed her impact are suddenly giving interviews about how great it is that women's basketball is in the spotlight. It's a masterclass in hypocrisy. Brennan notes that Clark's rookie year was the most commercially successful in league history. TV ratings broke records. Attendance surged. Merchandise sold out. Corporate sponsors came knocking. And still, the league felt divided, torn between capitalizing on its biggest star and clinging to a culture that actively resents her. The internal power struggles, the generational gaps, the racial dynamics, all of it plays into a story that's not just about one player, but about how institutions sabotage themselves when change comes too fast. Brennan reveals that there were moments the league could have pivoted. They could have launched ad campaigns uniting players under the shared goal of growing the game. They could have packaged Clark's rise as a win for all women's sports. Instead, they let resentment fester. They treated her fandom like a threat, her popularity like a problem. What could have been a rising tide lifting all boats turned into a civil war. Brennan's work also touches on the deeper psychological issues at play. For years, the WNBA operated in obscurity, surviving on grit and community rather than mainstream success. When success finally arrived, it didn't look like they expected it to. It came blonde from Iowa, with a deadly jump shot and a fierce competitive edge. And instead of adapting, the system tried to spit her out. There are chapters in the book dedicated to the kinds of coverage Clark received compared to her peers. Media hits that minimized her accomplishments, interviews that tried to frame her as a problem child, and constant narratives about how her attention was hurting the league instead of helping it. Brennan even unpacks how broadcast crews seemed reluctant to spotlight her for fear of overshadowing other players, completely ignoring that Clark's presence was the only reason many viewers were tuning in to begin with. The league's failure wasn't just in failing to protect her. It was in failing to see that protecting her was protecting the league. Every foul she took without a statement from the league, every snub in promo materials, every underwhelming marketing move was a missed opportunity to say this is who we are now. Brennan doesn't ignore the racial dynamics either. She calls it out directly. The fact that Clark is white in a predominantly black league complicates things. Not because it should, but because it does. But instead of having the hard conversations, the league largely stayed silent, hoping the storm would pass. Brennan says that silence is one of the biggest stains on the league's reputation. One of the most eye-opening sections of the book discusses how even global opportunities were missed. Clark's appeal wasn't just limited to the U.S. Her highlights were going viral worldwide. She was bringing international attention to a domestic league, something leagues dream of. And yet, instead of positioning the WNBA as a global brand with a global star, officials kept things local and small-minded. The result? They didn't just fumble a moment, they fumbled a movement. Brennan concludes by saying that if the WNBA wants to survive and thrive in the coming decade, it has to do more than just tolerate players like Clark. It has to build around them. That means shifting the culture, modernizing the media approach, and creating space for generational talents to be celebrated, not punished. Whether the league learns from this or continues down its path of self-sabotage remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. You can't pray for success and then punish the person who brings it. The WNBA has a gift in CaitlinClark. The question is, will they finally wake up and open it?